Have you ever felt like your family's dark secrets were buried too deep to uncover, until one discovery gave you the power to expose the truth and rewrite your legacy? This is my story. My name is Sophie, and at 29 years old, I discovered that the family I idolized had been hiding scandals for generations until I found the courage to bring them into the light and create something meaningful. I grew up in a wealthy and influential family where appearances mattered more than anything else. My uncle, Charles, was the patriarch, a man who commanded respect and admiration from everyone around him. He was charming, ambitious, and seemingly untouchable. As a child, I looked up to him, believing he was the epitome of success and integrity. But as I grew older, I began to notice cracks in the facade. Whispers of scandals, betrayals, and cover-ups lingered in the shadows, but no one dared to speak openly about them, not even me. My parents often reminded me to stay in my lane and not question the family's decisions. They told me that loyalty was everything, that our reputation depended on keeping quiet. So I learned to suppress my curiosity, to nod along when they dismissed uncomfortable truths as mere gossip. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Then, one day, everything changed. My grandmother passed away, leaving behind a letter addressed specifically to me. In it, she revealed that she had kept a journal, documenting decades of the family's secrets that included fraud, adultery, and even criminal activities. She entrusted me with the responsibility of deciding what to do with this information. Sophie, she wrote, you have the power to expose the truth or let it remain buried. Whatever you choose, know that I believe in you. The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. For days, I wrestled with what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore the journals, to pretend I had never seen them. After all, exposing the truth would mean risking everything: the family's reputation, my relationships, and even my own safety. But another part of me knew that staying silent would only perpetuate the cycle of lies and deception. I realized that my grandmother hadn't just left me a burden, she had given me a mission. Determined to uncover the full extent of the family's secrets, I began reading the journals. What I found was even worse than I imagined. My Uncle Charles had embezzled millions from the family business, using the money to fund his extravagant lifestyle while leaving employees unpaid. He had also orchestrated cover-ups for crimes committed by other family members, ensuring that their misdeeds remained hidden. The journals contained evidence of forged documents, bribes, and even blackmail, all meticulously recorded by my grandmother over the years. For weeks, I struggled to process the magnitude of what I had uncovered. How could the family I admired so much be capable of such betrayal? How could I confront them without destroying everything we had built? But as I reflected on my grandmother's words, I realized that the truth wasn't just about exposing wrongdoing, it was about creating accountability. Why and fostering change. I decided to act, using the evidence from the journals. I filed a lawsuit against Charles and other family members involved in the scandals. The case gained national attention, and soon, stories of victims began to surface. Employees who had been cheated out of their wages, business partners who had been deceived, and community members who had suffered due to the family's greed, came forward to share their experiences. Their stories resonated deeply with me, reminding me of why I had chosen this path. As the trial unfolded, I watched the family's empire crumble. Charles's once unshakable confidence turned into desperation as the evidence mounted against him. Friends and allies abandoned him, and his reputation was destroyed. In the end, the court ruled in favor of the victims. ordering Charles and the others to pay restitution for the damages they had caused. I used the recovered funds to establish a foundation dedicated to supporting victims of corporate fraud and financial exploitation. I called the foundation Legacy of Truth, a name that reflected my journey of exposing the family's secrets and empowering others to seek justice. Through the organization, I provided resources, legal assistance, and counseling to individuals affected by similar scandals. I also launched educational programs to teach ethical leadership and accountability, ensuring that future generations would learn from the mistakes of the past. One of the people I helped was Marcus, a former employee of the family business, who had been denied severance pay after being laid off. When he came to us, he was struggling to make ends meet, unsure of how to fight back against the powerful forces that had wronged him. Together, we worked to file claims, secure compensation, and rebuild his life. Watching him regain his dignity and confidence reminded me of my own journey and the strength I had discovered within myself. Another individual, Laura, shared a story eerily similar to mine. Her family had also been embroiled in scandals, and she had spent years trying to uncover the truth without success. When she learned about Legacy of Truth, she reached out for support. Together, we helped her navigate the legal system, recover stolen assets, and find closure. Her gratitude reinforced my belief that the work we were doing was making a difference, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole. As the foundation grew, so did my sense of purpose. I realized that the family's betrayal, while devastating, had given me a gift, the opportunity to turn pain into action and create something meaningful. By exposing the truth, I was able to honor the parts of my relationship with my grandmother that mattered most. The lessons she taught me about resilience, courage, and the importance of standing up for what's right. But building Legacy of Truth wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when I questioned whether I was strong enough to carry the weight of so many stories, so much pain. There were times when the memories of the family's lies threatened to overwhelm me, pulling me back into the darkness. But I reminded myself of why I started this journey: to create a better future, not just for myself, but for others. Through the individuals I met, I discovered something profound. Healing isn't a linear process. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful, but it's also transformative. By sharing our stories, supporting one another, and taking steps toward change, we can reclaim our power and rewrite our narratives. That realization became the foundation of Legacy of Truth, not just as an organization, but as a movement. As the months turned into years, Legacy of Truth expanded beyond what I ever imagined. We opened shelters for victims of corporate fraud, partnered with legal aid clinics to provide free services, and launched workshops on financial independence and self-empowerment. I traveled across the country, speaking at conferences and sharing my story to inspire others. Each speech, each workshop, each interaction reminded me of why I started this journey and the impact we could have together. But perhaps the most meaningful part of my work was the connections I formed with the people I helped. They weren't just beneficiaries of Legacy of Truth, they became my family, my confidants, my source of strength. Their stories taught me that pain, no matter how deep, can be transformed into purpose. One woman, Maria, stood out in particular. She had been trapped in an emotionally abusive marriage for over 2 decades, convinced that she was unworthy of love or independence. When she first came to us, she barely spoke, her eyes filled with fear and shame. Slowly, through therapy and support, she began to open up, She learned to manage her finances, found a job she loved, and eventually moved into her own apartment. The day she handed me a thank you card, tears streaming down her face, I realized that legacy of truth wasn't just changing lives, it was saving them. Of course, there were setbacks along the way. Not every story had a happy ending. Some individuals returned to toxic environments, unable to break free from the cycle of abuse. Others struggled to rebuild their lives, overwhelmed by the weight of their circumstances. Each loss weighed heavily on me, reminding me of the fragility of human resilience. But even in those moments of despair, I held on to hope. Hope that our work was making a difference, even if it wasn't always visible. Hope that every person who walked through our doors would leave stronger than when they arrived. Looking back, I realized that the family didn't just leave me a legacy of secrets, they gave me the tools to transform it into something meaningful. Their actions forced me to confront truths I might otherwise have avoided, pushing me to grow in ways I never imagined. And while I'll never fully understand why they chose to live the way they did, I've come to accept that their choices don't define me. Instead, they've shaped me into the person I am today, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference. Through legacy of truth, I've learned that power isn't about control or revenge, it's about creating opportunities for others to thrive. It's about using your pain to fuel positive change, to lift others up when they feel like they can't stand on their own. And it's about recognizing that, no matter how broken you feel, you have the ability to rebuild not just your life, but the lives of those around you. If you're watching this and feeling betrayed, remember, your pain doesn't have to define you. You have the power to turn it into purpose, to create something beautiful out of something broken. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more inspiring stories, and let's rewrite our legacy together.